On February 19, 2025, a crucial group stage match of the AFC Champions Elite League, ACLE, was set to take place in Ulsan, South Korea. China's Shandong Taishan team was scheduled to face South Korea's Ulsan HD team. A draw would have been enough for Taishan to advance to the round of 16. However, just 2 hours before kickoff, Shandong Taishan suddenly announced their withdrawal, citing severe health issues among the players. What shocked everyone was that this wasn't a decision made by the players or the coach. Instead, it was orchestrated by top officials in the Chinese Communist Party, who were worried that images of the tank man from the Tiananmen Square protests would appear at the stadium. To understand what led to this, we have to go back to the previous round on February 11th. That day, Shandong Taishan played at home against South Korea's Gwangju FC and won 3-1, with more than 30,000 fans in attendance. After the match, Gwangju's head coach even thanked all the supporters, saying, "No matter who you are cheering for, you're the reason we exist." But no one expected what would happen when the Gwangju team returned home. South Korean media reported that during the match, some Chinese fans displayed images that deeply offended the Korean people. There were 3 pictures, one of Chun Do-hwan, one of Kim Jong-il, and one of Kim Jong-un. Any one of these would have sparked outrage, but Chun Do-hwan's image, in particular, was a complete taboo in Gwangju. His name alone is enough to set people off. When these images surfaced online, the South Korean media jumped on the story. Gwangju FC was furious, calling it a provocation by Chinese fans. Their official statement went even further, saying this wasn't just an insult to the team, but an attack on the entire Korean nation. They filed an official complaint with the AFC, demanding severe punishment for Shandong Taishan. So, who was Chun Do-hwan? He was one of the most notorious dictators in South Korea's modern history. After the assassination of President Park Chung-hee in 1979, the country fell into chaos. Chun seized power through a military coup known as the December 12th incident, and imposed an iron-fisted rule. In 1980, a massive pro-democracy uprising broke out in Gwangju. Chun responded by sending in tanks to brutally suppress the protests, leaving 240 dead, 409 missing, and over 5,000 injured. Ever since, Gwangju has associated his name with tyranny and bloodshed. For Taishan fans to hold up his image was like rubbing salt into an open wound. Even before this, South Koreans didn't have a great impression of China. Surveys show that China's favorability rating in South Korea is only 2.6 out of 10, lower than Japan's 3.4. In fact, 31% of South Koreans gave China a score of 0. The Gwangju incident only made things worse, turning a sports controversy into a full-blown diplomatic crisis. On February 18th, the Chinese embassy in South Korea urgently reached out to the South Korean Foreign Ministry, trying to defuse the situation. But the response from the Korean side was firm. Just an apology wouldn't be enough. Both Gwangju FC and the city government made it clear that they expected more. That same day, Shandong Taishan arrived in Ulsan to prepare for the upcoming match, but they were met with a wave of retaliation from Gwangju fans. According to reporters and Chinese fans in South Korea, a convoy of buses from Gwangju drove to Ulsan, surrounding the hotel where the Taishan team was staying. The fans carried banners featuring images of the tank man from 1989 Tiananmen Square protests, along with other references to 89-64, a shorthand for June 4, 1989, the date of the crackdown. The atmosphere was incredibly tense. The Shandong Taishan team panicked. They feared that if these banners appeared during the match, international media would capture them and spread them worldwide. For the CCP, anything related to June 4th is an absolute taboo, more sensitive than anything else. If this political bomb went off, not only would the Taishan team be in trouble, but officials in Shandong province responsible for the team could lose their positions. The Chinese embassy in South Korea reported the situation to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, citing concerns that it could damage China-South Korea relations, affect the investment climate, and spread sensitive political symbols. The issue was then escalated to the State Council, where it was officially classified as a political crisis. In the end, top officials decided that withdrawing from the match was the safest option. Reports suggest that the embassy itself did not have direct authority over the club's decision. Instead, the order likely came from Vice Premier Ding Xuexiang or Premier Li Qiang through the governor of Shandong, who then instructed the Provincial Sports Bureau and the club to execute the withdrawal. The message was clear: losing a match was preferable to allowing images of the Tiananmen Square protests to appear on camera. This was especially sensitive because the CCP was trying to mend ties with South Korea and was considering lifting the ban on Korean entertainment and cultural imports. Letting Shandong Taishan withdraw was seen as a way to prevent further deterioration of relations. After all, how could China push forward with the 2025 Foreign Investment Stability Action Plan announced by the State Council on February 19th if tensions with South Korea escalated over a football match? At exactly 6 p.m. on February 19th, the Asian Football Confederation, AFC, issued an official statement declaring that Shandong Taishan had withdrawn due to personal reasons and officially recorded it as a forfeiture. Minutes later, the club released its own statement, claiming that players had suddenly fallen ill and were unable to form a complete squad, forcing them to pull out. They even went through the motions of apologizing to the fans and the AFC. Meanwhile, Ulsan HD showed up at the stadium as scheduled, only to realize their opponent had bailed. The team had no choice but to leave disappointed. Fans at the venue, including those who had traveled from China, only found out about the cancellation after arriving. The stadium loudspeakers instructed everyone to leave, while the Taishan team had already boarded their bus and headed straight for the airport. But no one was buying the excuse of sudden illness. There was no mention of specific symptoms, no medical reports, nothing. According to AFC rules, if a team is unable to play due to uncontrollable circumstances such as food poisoning, they must provide evidence to avoid penalties. Shandong Taishan presented nothing. As a result, the AFC had no hesitation in classifying it as a forfeiture and preparing for severe disciplinary action. How big was the cost? The AFC imposed fines ranging from $50,000 to $200,000 for unauthorized withdrawals. Additionally, the team lost $1.3 million in participation and travel subsidies. Worse, they now face a potential 1 to 5 year ban from international competitions, bringing total losses to over $1.5 million. South Korean media mocked them as deserters. Chinese netizens blasted them for being the most cowardly team ever. Their reputation was in shambles. As for the fans that held up the Chengdu Huan photos, they were likely arrested in China and charged with picking and provoking trouble, which could land them in jail for at least a year. Quite a light sentence, considering they cost their team both money and dignity. The AFC Champions Elite League gathers some of the top-performing clubs from across Asia. While the overall level isn't the highest, it's still a respectable competition. Shandong Taishan isn't considered a powerhouse in China, so reaching the 16th East Asian round was already an achievement. Their performance in the first 7 matches was decent, and they only needed a draw against Ulsan HD to secure a spot in the knockout stage. But everything fell apart at the last moment. This whole debacle is just another episode in the ongoing tensions between China and South Korea. When the two countries established diplomatic relations on August 24, 1992, China was still in the early stages of economic reform and was eager for South Korean investment, technology, and market experience. Companies like Samsung, Hyundai, LG, and Lotte rushed into China, while Korean pop culture, like the TV drama Jewel in the Palace and K-pop group HOT, became wildly popular. But as China's economy grew, its dependence on South Korea declined, and the CCP's attitude turned cold. Online, Chinese nationalists started calling Korean culture a cheap copy of Chinese traditions, and dismissed South Korea as too small and too weak. This growing sense of superiority spread among the public, gradually eroding cultural ties and planting the seeds of today's hostility. Then came the THAAD missile defense crisis, which shattered relations. When the U.S. deployed the THAAD system in South Korea, China saw it as a security threat and responded with economic retaliation. Chinese nationalists burned Samsung phones and Hyundai cars, boycotted Lotte supermarkets, and forced the chain to shut down hundreds of stores. Samsung and Hyundai sales plummeted, and South Korean businesses began pulling out of China. Samsung moved its production lines to Vietnam and India. Hyundai cut investments. Lotte completely withdrew. Trust between the two countries collapsed. Furious at what they saw as China's economic bullying, South Koreans launched their own boycott movements against Chinese goods and tourism. The sight of Gwangju fans holding up Tankman banners was the culmination of 2 decades of resentment. In the end, China's past actions came back to haunt it. The CCP once encouraged its citizens to burn lot supermarkets. Now it's the CCP itself getting burned, this time by photos of the Tiananmen Square protests. Shandong Taishan's hasty exit only made things worse. From Voice of America to NetEase to Reddit, the internet erupted in ridicule. The CCP's hypersensitivity was on full display for the world to see. One user on Voice of America took a jab at China's nationalistic playbook. If South Koreans really wanted to mess with them, they should hold up photos of the Chinese embassy bombing in Yugoslavia. That'll shut them up real fast. That 1999 NATO bombing has been a cornerstone of Chinese nationalist propaganda for over 2 decades. Now it's been turned into a joke at China's expense. On NetEase, Chinese netizens didn't hold back their criticism. One person bluntly asked, "What kind of sudden illness is this? What were the team doctors doing? Why didn't they prepare in advance? This is embarrassing." Another netizen sarcastically suggested, "For anyone confused about the news, just check out the Lianhe Zaobao app. It's a legal Singaporean media outlet." The implication was obvious. This was a direct jab at China's censorship system, where even basic facts have to be smuggled in through foreign media. Meanwhile, over on Reddit, the discussion exploded. Users dissected Shandong's withdrawal with sharp humor and brutal analysis. One commenter joked, "Looks like people have discovered the ultimate strategy to defeat Chinese sports teams. Just hold up a couple of photos and they'll forfeit on the spot. Now we all know how to win against China." Another quipped, "They surrendered before the battle even began. The problem is, the CCP has way too many skeletons in the closet. All it takes is a Tankman photo or a Winnie the Pooh meme mocking Xi Jinping, and Shandong's leadership will be called in for a cup of tea with the authorities." Winnie the Pooh has been widely used as a meme to mock Xi Jinping, who resembles the cartoon character. Some users even suggested, just hold up a picture of beloved former Premier Li Keqiang and that would be enough. The ridicule kept piling on. Inside China's internet bubble, they're always playing at home, with censors deleting negative comments, so they think they can't lose. But the moment they step outside, they realize what the real world is like. Of all people to provoke, they just had to pick the equally nationalist South Koreans. Another user mocked, "One Tankman photo and they've already wetted their pants. So much for that strong nation dream. It's made of paper." Someone else pointed out, "Imagine a picture of a Shandong player in the foreground, with anti-Xi banners in the background. The moment that gets picked up by foreign media, the Chinese government will be humiliated all over again." The so-called invincibility of China's firewall crumbled as soon as it faced the outside world. Another person analyzed, "It's not necessarily that the top leadership panicked. The problem is the bureaucratic hierarchy. There are so many levels of command. But if both the Cyberspace Administration and the Chinese embassy in South Korea got involved, then the order must have come from the Politburo. This just proves that while wolf warrior nationalism has brainwashed the general public, the actual leadership is much more cowardly when dealing with the outside world." Others laughed at how the entire episode has turned into a guide to saving your job. They said, "Shandong fans thought they could provoke South Koreans, but they forgot that China itself is covered in political landmines. The officials, scared of losing their positions, would rather pull the whole team out of the tournament." On Chinese site Zhihu, a user known for independent commentary on sports couldn't help but mock the situation. They said, "This excuse is so ridiculous it sounds like a joke. How could an illness make the entire team collapse overnight?" He tried to take a more rational approach, arguing that this was yet another example of Chinese football being hijacked by politics. But since he was posting inside China, he had to be careful, not daring to explicitly mention the real issue, the Tankman photos. A Shandong Taishan fan posted on X, criticizing the decision-makers behind the withdrawal. He wrote, "Whoever made this decision clearly doesn't love football and has no sense of responsibility. It's been one disaster after another. This is heartbreaking for long-term fans. A bunch of bureaucrats who do nothing but drink all day. This is the result. At this rate, we should be grateful if Shandong Taishan doesn't end up as a banned term." The whole incident with Shandong fans holding up a photo of Chun Du-hwan is a reflection of China's online nationalist culture. In recent years, social media in China has been filled with wolf warrior rhetoric, boycotting foreign brands, mocking neighboring countries, and treating provocation as entertainment. The fans who bought the Chun Du-hwan photo likely thought they were flexing their patriotic muscles. What they didn't expect was that their provocation would backfire so spectacularly. A sports commentator on Zhihu remarked, "Chinese football has been hijacked by non-football factors. Professionalism is a joke." He didn't say it outright, but everyone knew what he meant. Those non-football factors were politics and the CCP's obsessive control over information. China was willing to throw away a match, take a $1.5 million penalty, and risk years of suspension, all to prevent its citizens from seeking the truth. It's a sign of extreme insecurity. The Zhihu article at least had some backbone. It dared to say the withdrawal was unprofessional and that there were hidden reasons behind it. But the deeper it went, the more it hesitated. No mention of Tiananmen, no mention of the South Korean fans' protest. Even the phrase politics over sports was only hinted at. The half-restrained tone is typical of Chinese netizens. They want to speak but don't dare to. They know the truth but can't fully say it. The firewall has sewn their mouths shut. China is riddled with political landmines. Tiananmen, Winnie the Pooh, Xi's nickname, Xi Baozi, Tankman, any one of these is enough to send the CCP into a panic. So where did they get the confidence to poke at other people's wounds? Sure, South Korea has its own historical scars, but compared to China's endless list of taboos, theirs are nothing. In the end, these Wolf Warrior fans proudly raised the Chen Duhuan photo, thinking they were being patriotic, only to teach the world how to strike at the CCP's weak spot with precision. Now the lesson has been learned, and soon it won't be just South Korean fans who know the trick. At the Olympics, the World Cup, the AFC Champions League, anytime a Chinese team competes, all it will take is a few people waving Tiananmen 1989 banners or cartoons mocking Xi Jinping. At this rate, China's sports broadcasts might become unwatchable. Either they'll be completely banned to prevent the cameras from accidentally catching sensitive content, or the stands will be blurred out entirely, just in case a Winnie the Pooh image flashes across the screen and gives a CCP official a heart attack. The firewall can't block the truth forever. The ghost of June 4th still lingers, hanging over the CCP like a curse. If international fans keep waving Tiananmen banners at events, will China keep running away?